Rebuilding Western Europe, From Destruction to Recovery, voiceover script, YouTube documentary style. Introduction. In the middle of the 20th century, Western Europe stood in ruins. Cities that had once been symbols of culture, industry, and power were reduced to rubble. Railways were twisted steel. Factories were silent. Millions were homeless, hungry, and exhausted after 6 years of total war. World War II did not just defeat armies, it shattered entire societies. So the question is not why Europe needed rebuilding. The real question is how it rebuilt so fast, and why the United States chose to help. The destruction of Western Europe. By 1945, Western Europe was economically and physically broken. Germany's industrial cities were flattened by bombing. France's rail networks and ports were destroyed. Italy's economy had collapsed. Britain, though victorious, was drowning in debt and shortages. Food production had fallen sharply. Inflation was out of control. Coal shortages meant no electricity, no heat, and no industry. Most governments simply did not have the money or resources to rebuild on their own. And worse, Chaz creates opportunity. Across Europe, political instability was rising. Communist parties were gaining popularity, especially in France and Italy. For the United States, this was a major warning sign. America's fear, economic collapse, and communism. After the war, the United States was the only major industrial power left intact. Its factories were running. Its economy was booming. Its gold reserves were massive. But this created a new problem. America needed customers. If Europe stayed poor and unstable, it could not buy American goods. And if Europe turned communist, it would fall under Soviet influence. So helping Europe was not just charity, it was strategy. The Marshall Plan, a radical idea. In 1947, U.S. Secretary of State George C. Marshall proposed something unprecedented. Instead of punishing defeated nations or demanding reparations, America would pay to rebuild Europe. This became known as the Marshall Plan. Between 1948 and 1951, the United States sent over $13 billion, worth more than $150 billion today, to Western Europe. But this was not free money. How the Marshall Plan worked. The Marshall Plan had conditions. European countries had to cooperate economically with each other, stabilize their currencies, rebuild industry, not just consume aid, block communist parties from taking power. The money was used for rebuilding factories, repairing railways and ports, buying American machinery, restarting agriculture and energy production. This created a powerful cycle. America sent money, Europe used it to buy American goods. European economies recovered, and then Europe became a strong trading partner. How fast did Europe recover? The results were dramatic. By the early 1950s, industrial production in Western Europe had surpassed pre-war levels. Food shortages disappeared. New infrastructure modernized entire economies. Germany experienced what became known as the economic miracle. France rebuilt with modern planning. Britain stabilized its economy despite massive debt. Western Europe did not just recover, it transformed. Why this benefited America? The Marshall Plan is often called an act of generosity, but it was also one of the smartest investments in history. Here's why it benefited the United States. First, economic power. A rebuilt Europe became one of America's largest markets. Second, political influence. Western Europe aligned with the U.S., not the Soviet Union. Third, global leadership. America positioned itself as the leader of the free world. Fourth, long-term stability. Strong economies are less likely to fall into extremism. This laid the foundation for NATO, the European Union, and decades of Western dominance. The big picture. The Marshall Plan proved something revolutionary. Peace is built not just with armies, but with food, factories, and hope. Instead of repeating the mistakes after World War I, America chose rebuilding over revenge, and in doing so, it reshaped Europe and secured its own global future. Conclusion: Western Europe rose from ashes because recovery was treated as a shared responsibility. The Marshall Plan was not just about money. It was about preventing collapse, stopping extremism, and creating a stable world order. Its legacy still shapes global politics today, and it reminds us of one powerful lesson: sometimes rebuilding your former battlegrounds is the smartest way to protect your future.